The grand hall of the Zirath Empire shone with bright blue crystals that floated above the long floor of polished metal. Each crystal gave a soft light, filling the air with a calm glow. The walls were curved like waves and covered with silver lines that moved slowly, alive with energy. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Vora, ruler of the Zirath Empire, a powerful being known across the galaxy for her wisdom and unmatched control. Her tall form sat on a throne made of glowing vines that twisted like frozen lightning. She was covered in dark silver armor that moved like skin and reflected the blue light of the hall. Her crown was a circle of glassy stones that hovered above her head, spinning slowly. Every movement she made carried weight, and even her silence was commanding. But today the queen felt strange. For the first time in many years, she was nervous. Not because of a threat or a war, but because of a meeting. A human envoy from the planet Earth was coming to meet her. It was a small diplomatic visit, arranged by her advisors to discuss trade, culture, and peace. Yet the queen found herself staring at her reflection on a shining panel beside her throne. She touched her faceplate, feeling the smooth, cold surface. The silver metal showed a reflection that was both fierce and elegant, yet she frowned slightly. Her species had always valued beauty and strength, but she wondered what humans thought beauty was. The report said that humans smiled often, laughed even in fear, and found beauty in softness and imperfection. It made no sense to her. Turning toward her advisor, Terran, she asked, "Do I look too fearsome?" Terran, a tall being with pale blue skin and a head crowned with bone-like ridges, blinked in confusion. "Your Majesty, you look as royal and magnificent as always. No one could question your appearance," the queen sighed quietly. "That is not the answer I seek, Terran. I am not asking if I appear powerful. I am asking if I look too frightening for a human." Terran hesitated. No one had ever heard their queen ask such a question. Humans are known to be emotional, Majesty. Perhaps they might find your presence overwhelming, but they also admire confidence. I believe you will leave a strong impression. The queen turned back to her reflection. "Strong impression," she repeated softly. "Yes, that much I can promise." Outside the grand hall, footsteps echoed. A line of guards entered, leading a small figure dressed in a white uniform. The human envoy had arrived. The guard stopped a few steps away from the throne. Presenting Envoy Ryan of the Human Federation, one of them announced. Queen Vora studied the human. Ryan was of average height compared to her tall frame. His eyes were calm and curious, scanning the hall with quiet wonder. He carried no weapon, only a translator device at his collar that shimmered faintly with each breath. The air between them felt heavy, filled with the quiet power of two worlds meeting for the first time. Ryan stopped before the throne and bowed politely. "Your Majesty," he said in a steady voice, "it is an honor to stand before you." The translator repeated his words in the soft tone of the Zirath language. Queen Vora nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. "Welcome, human envoy. I have been told much about your kind. You are bold, curious, and often unpredictable." Ryan smiled lightly. "We try our best, Your Majesty." For a moment, silence filled the hall again. The queen could feel all eyes on her, from her guards to her advisors. She felt the weight of her earlier thoughts pressing at the back of her mind. Finally, unable to resist, she asked the question that had been troubling her. "Tell me, human," she said, her voice calm but serious, "what do you think of my appearance?" Ryan blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Your appearance, Majesty?" "Yes," she said, leaning slightly forward. "I wonder how humans perceive me. My form, my presence. Do I appear monstrous to your kind?" The hall fell silent. Even the hum of the crystals seemed to fade. The guards shifted nervously. No one dared to move or speak. The question sounded almost dangerous, though her tone was not angry. It was curious, even uncertain. Ryan looked up at her again. Her silver armor reflected his image like a mirror, and her eyes glowed faintly gold. She looked powerful, alien, and magnificent. Yet the question made her seem strangely human. For a moment, Ryan did not know how to answer. Then a quiet sound escaped him. It started as a small chuckle, but soon he couldn't stop himself. He laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, not mocking or rude, but bright and genuine. The hall froze. Every guard stepped forward slightly, and Terran raised his hand in alarm. The queen's eyes widened. Never in all her years had anyone laughed in her presence. Ryan noticed the sudden tension and quickly raised his hands. "Wait, Please, Your Majesty, I don't mean any disrespect, he said quickly, trying to control his laughter. It's just, your question caught me by surprise. You look incredible, but you were worried about that? Forgive me, but that's very human of you. Queen Vora blinked slowly. Very human? She asked. Yes, Ryan said, smiling now. Humans worry about their looks all the time. Before big meetings, before celebrations, even before video calls. We think too much about how others see us. I didn't expect an alien queen to have the same concern. It surprised me, and I guess my laughter was my way of realizing how similar we might be. The queen stared at him for several long seconds. Then instead of anger, she felt something new. Curiosity. No one in her empire would have dared speak to her so openly, yet this human did, not with fear but with honesty. You are bold, she said finally. Ryan shrugged lightly. It's how we survive, Your Majesty. Taryn stepped forward nervously. Majesty, perhaps the human should be reminded of proper... The queen lifted her hand, stopping him. No, Taryn, I am not offended. His answer was unexpected but truthful. She stood from her throne, her tall figure towering over Ryan. The crystals above shifted their color from blue to soft white as if reacting to her mood. Tell me, human, do your people often speak so freely to your rulers? Ryan smiled again. Sometimes too freely. It causes trouble, but it also helps us understand each other better. We believe honesty builds stronger trust than silence. The queen walked closer. Her armor made no sound as she moved, and her golden eyes met his. You believe honesty is greater than fear, she said quietly. Interesting. Among my kind, fear ensures respect. Ryan shook his head gently. Respect and fear aren't the same, Your Majesty. Respect comes from understanding. Fear only lasts until the fear fades. Queen Vora tilted her head slightly, studying him like a scientist observing a strange creature. You speak as if your kind values weakness. Ryan replied softly. Maybe. But we also find strength in weakness. It reminds us that we can grow. That's what laughter means to us. It's how we face the things that scare us. Even now, standing in front of you, I was scared, but laughing made it easier to breathe. The queen turned away for a moment, her expression thoughtful. She had expected arrogance or flattery, but this human spoke with sincerity and courage. His laughter had been strange, yet it had broken something cold inside her chest that she hadn't noticed before. You are different from what I imagined, human, she said. I expected pride or fear or false manners. But you bring something else, Ryan nodded. We bring ourselves, Your Majesty. That's all we can offer. The queen smiled faintly, not with her mouth but through the soft change in her eyes. Perhaps that is enough, she said. The tension in the hall eased. The guards lowered their weapons. Taryn exhaled quietly in relief. Queen Vora returned to her throne. Very well. You will stay as my guest for the next few days. We will speak again, human envoy. There is much I wish to understand. Ryan bowed once more. It will be my honor, Your Majesty. As he was led away, the queen looked at her reflection once again. She no longer saw a fearsome ruler, nor a flawless being of metal and light. She saw someone curious, uncertain, but alive in a new way. And though she did not laugh, a quiet warmth settled in her heart. For the first time in many years, Queen Vora looked forward to her next conversation, not with an advisor or a soldier, but with a human who had dared to laugh in her grand hall. The next morning on the planet of Zirath began with soft golden light spreading over the crystal towers of the royal city. Every building shone like glass under the twin suns, and the air carried a gentle hum from energy lines running beneath the streets. In the highest tower of all, Queen Vora stood near a wide window watching the sunrise over her empire. It was a peaceful view, yet her mind was far from calm. She kept replaying the event from the day before. A human had laughed in her presence, in the grand hall where no one dared even raise their voice without permission. It had been so unexpected that even now she could still hear the echo of that laughter in her thoughts. Her court had reacted with fear and confusion. Some of her guards had later asked if they should arrest the human for disrespect, but she had ordered them not to. Instead, she had told them to leave the matter to her. She needed to understand what had happened and why she felt something strange during that moment. That feeling had not been anger. It had not been insult either. It was something softer, something that made her feel less like a ruler and more like a person. She turned away from the window and looked at the mirror made of silver energy that floated before her. It showed her reflection clearly, Her tall form looked strong and flawless, her armor shining like liquid metal, her golden eyes calm and sharp. She touched the edge of her faceplate again and whispered, "What did that human see?" There was a soft sound as her advisor, Terran, entered the room. "Your Majesty, you called for me?" Vora nodded slightly. "Yes. Bring the human envoy here. I wish to speak with him again. Alone." Terran hesitated. "Alone, Majesty? Is that wise? He is still unfamiliar with our customs. Yesterday's event already caused unrest in the court." "I am aware," the Queen said firmly, "but I do not believe he meant harm. I must understand him. If his words are truth, then perhaps there is more to these humans than we thought." Terran bowed deeply. "As you command, Majesty." A short time later, the heavy doors opened, and Ryan was escorted into the Queen's private chamber. The guard stayed outside, leaving the two of them alone. The room was quiet, filled with the soft glow of hovering lights and the scent of a rare flower that grew only in the royal gardens. Ryan bowed politely again. "Your Majesty, it's good to see you this morning." Queen Vora studied him carefully. "You seem untroubled despite yesterday's event. Were you not afraid when my guard stepped forward?" Ryan smiled slightly. "Of course I was. They looked ready to turn me into dust. But I also trusted your judgment. You didn't seem angry, so I hoped that meant I'd live to see another day." The Queen tilted her head. "You sound far too calm for someone in danger." Ryan chuckled softly. "Humans have a strange way of dealing with fear. We try to laugh through it. It's not that we don't feel scared. It's just that laughing makes fear smaller. When something feels too big, we find humor to make it easier to face." The Queen crossed her arms and looked thoughtful. "That is an odd way of thinking. You believe laughter gives strength?" "In a way, yes," Ryan said. "It reminds us that we're still in control, that even if something is terrifying, we can still choose how to react." Vora walked closer, her armor catching the light. "When I asked you about my appearance, you laughed. Was that your way of hiding fear too?" Ryan shook his head quickly. "No, Your Majesty. That was not fear. That was surprise. You looked so powerful, so majestic, and yet you were worried about something as small as appearance. It made me realize that even great rulers can have human-like thoughts. It made you feel familiar, not distant." The Queen's eyes softened slightly. "Familiar," she repeated. "No one has ever called me that." Ryan smiled. "Then I guess that's a first." For a moment the Queen said nothing. Her gaze was steady, her golden eyes filled with silent thoughts. "Tell me more about humans, Ryan," she said after a pause. "Your people are different from the rest of the galaxy. You are not the strongest or the most advanced, yet you have spread across many worlds. What drives you?" Ryan thought for a moment. "Hope, maybe. Curiosity, too. We always want to see what's beyond the next horizon. Even when things are hard, we keep moving forward. I think that's what keeps us alive." The Queen nodded slowly. "You survive through curiosity. Interesting. My people survive through order and control. We fear chaos more than death." Ryan looked around the room, admiring the smooth, perfect walls and the flawless patterns glowing on the floor. "Your world is beautiful, but maybe too perfect. Perfection can make life quiet, but it can also make it lonely." Vora looked at him sharply. "Lonely?" "Yes," Ryan said gently. "When everything is perfect, there's no room for mistakes or surprises, no room for laughter. But laughter connects people. It shows that it's okay to not be perfect all the time." The Queen turned away and stared at the shining window again. "My empire has no room for such weakness. My people expect perfection from their queen. If they saw me uncertain, they would think I am losing control." Ryan shook his head. "Maybe they would think you're more real. A leader who understands fear and doubt is one who understands her people." There was silence for a while. The sound of the distant city filled the space between them. The Queen was deep in thought. She had ruled for many years, always with precision and strength, but this human's words kept cutting through her certainty. Finally, she asked, "Why do you not fear me, Ryan? Every other species that meets me trembles. You do not." Ryan smiled softly. Maybe because you remind me of someone. My mother used to be a teacher. She was strict, serious, and always demanded perfection from me. But sometimes when she smiled, it made everything feel safe. When I saw you yesterday, I thought you had that same presence. Strong but capable of kindness. The Queen felt something stir in her chest. Kindness is not a word used often for me. Then maybe it should be, Ryan said. Vora turned back toward him. For the first time, her expression seemed lighter. You are a strange creature, human. Your words carry no fear, and yet they change how I see things. Ryan nodded. That's what we humans do best. We talk too much, think too much, and laugh when we shouldn't. But sometimes that helps others see the world differently. The Queen gave a quiet sound that almost resembled a laugh, though it was short and uncertain. Ryan's eyes widened slightly, realizing what had just happened. You just laughed, he said softly. The Queen's eyes flickered with surprise. Did I? Yes, Ryan said with a grin. And it didn't cause the universe to collapse. The Queen shook her head slightly, hiding what almost looked like a smile. You are very bold, human. It's either that or be boring, Ryan replied. Vora walked back to her throne and sat down slowly. I begin to see why your people spread across the stars. You may not be the strongest, but you have something my kind does not. You find strength in imperfection. Ryan nodded. Exactly. Sometimes it's our mistakes that make us better. That's why I laughed yesterday. I didn't mean to be rude, I just realized you were asking a question every human asks before something important. What question is that? The Queen asked. Ryan smiled. Do I look all right? The Queen looked thoughtful again. And humans ask this often? All the time, Ryan said. Before meetings, before interviews, before weddings. We worry about how others see us. But deep down, what we really want to know is if we're enough. The Queen sat silently for a long moment. Her golden eyes softened as if something inside her had finally shifted. Perhaps that question is not so foolish after all. Ryan gave a small nod. It's not foolish, Your Majesty. It's what makes us who we are. There was another pause, then the Queen said, You will dine with me this evening. I wish to continue this discussion. My advisors will not like it, but I find your words interesting. Ryan bowed respectfully. It would be my honor. When he left the chamber, Terran entered soon after. Majesty, you met with the human alone. I hope he did not offend you again. Queen Vora looked at him quietly. He did not offend me. He made me think. Terran frowned. Think, Majesty? Yes, she said slowly. About laughter, about fear, about what it means to be seen as enough. Terran looked puzzled but did not argue. He bowed again and left her to her thoughts. When the door closed, the Queen stood once more by the window. The twin suns were now higher in the sky, their light flooding the city with warmth. She looked down at her reflection in the glass. For the first time, she noticed something different. The face looking back at her was not just a ruler's face. It was a living being trying to understand something new. And as she turned away, she whispered softly, Perhaps humans are not as simple as they seem. That night's dinner would change her even more, though she did not yet know how deeply the human's laughter would shape the future of her empire. As the second sun began to set, the palace of Zirath glowed in deep gold and purple light. The wide towers shimmered like glass mountains, and the air hummed with the sound of energy wings from patrolling guards. In the center of the royal palace, the grand dining hall was being prepared for a most unusual event. Queen Vora had invited a human to dine with her. It was something no ruler of the Zirath Empire had ever done. The royal advisors were nervous, whispering among themselves. The servants moved carefully, placing glowing dishes made of rare fruits, meats from the floating gardens, and crystal cups filled with bright blue liquid that sparkled with energy. When Ryan entered the hall, he stopped for a moment to take in the sight. The walls were lined with mirrors that shimmered with moving colors, and long strands of light hung from the ceiling like soft ribbons. He had seen many alien worlds before, but none had felt as alive as this one. Queen Vora was already seated at the end of the table. Her armor tonight was lighter, made of silver cloth that shifted like water as she moved. Her golden eyes followed him with calm curiosity. "Welcome again, human envoy," she said in her smooth voice. "Please sit. I trust your quarters were acceptable." Ryan nodded politely and sat across from her. "They were more than acceptable, Your Majesty. I think your idea of comfort is far more advanced than ours." The Queen smiled slightly. "Our people take pride in order and beauty, yet I have learned that humans value comfort differently. You seem to find peace in things that are imperfect." Ryan laughed softly. "That's true. I think we like it when things feel real, not flawless." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Real and flawless cannot exist together." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "Sometimes perfection feels cold. Humans like small signs of life, a scratch on a cup, a wrinkle on a face, a laugh that breaks silence. Those little things make us feel connected." Vora looked thoughtful. "Connected. You use that word often. My people understand unity through strength and command, but you speak of connection through imperfection. Explain." Ryan looked at the long table filled with food, some glowing faintly, some strange in color. "It's like this meal," he said. "Everything here looks perfect, symmetrical, polished, balanced. But if I took a simple human meal, like bread and soup, it wouldn't look perfect. Still, it would remind me of home, of family, of small moments. That feeling connects us. Maybe that's what you miss when everything is perfect." The Queen was silent for a while, staring at him. "You speak boldly, human. No one in my empire has ever spoken to me so freely." Ryan smiled gently. "Maybe they should. A ruler hears more truth from honest words than from polite silence." The Queen tilted her head slightly. "Do your rulers hear such words often?" Ryan laughed again. "Not always, but we try. Sometimes they ignore us, sometimes they listen. Either way, we keep talking. That's our way." The Queen looked amused, though her voice remained steady. "You are a strange species. You laugh even when you question your leaders," Ryan shrugged. "It keeps us from losing hope." The Queen studied him closely. "Hope," she said softly. "Another word you use often. My people do not speak of hope. We speak of purpose." Ryan nodded. "Maybe they are similar. Hope is like a small light in the dark. Even when you don't know what will happen, you keep moving forward because you believe things can get better." The Queen rested her hand on the table. Her long silver fingers reflected the light. "And what happens when that light fades?" Ryan's smile softened. "Then someone else helps you find it again. No one carries hope alone." There was silence for a moment, broken only by the faint hum of the glowing dishes. The Queen's golden eyes softened as if she was seeing something new. "You speak as if weakness is not a shame but a bridge between beings." Ryan nodded. "That's a good way to put it. Weakness reminds us that we need each other." The Queen looked down at the table. Her people had built an empire by suppressing weakness, by demanding perfection from every citizen. Yet this human made weakness sound like a kind of strength. A servant approached, carrying a tall glass bowl filled with floating silver spheres. The Queen gestured for him to place it before Ryan. "This is a delicacy from our deep ocean cities," she said. "It holds energy and flavor. Be careful when you bite." Ryan picked up one of the glowing spheres carefully. It vibrated softly in his hand. "It looks amazing," he said, then took a small bite. The sphere broke apart and filled his mouth with a mix of cold and heat, like ice and fire together. His eyes widened. Wow. I can't describe it. It's strange but good." The Queen seemed pleased. "It pleases me that you enjoy it. You are the first human to taste it." Ryan grinned. "Then I'll make sure to brag about it when I go home." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Brag?" Ryan laughed. "It means to speak proudly about something. Like saying, I met an alien queen and survived dinner." The Queen gave a small sound that almost resembled laughter again. "You continue to surprise me, human." The atmosphere in the hall began to feel lighter. The Queen asked more questions, about human families, traditions, art, and festivals. Ryan described how humans painted pictures, wrote music, and told stories to express emotion. Vora listened carefully, fascinated by the idea of art as a way to share feeling. "In my empire," she said, "art is a symbol of power. It is perfect without flaw. Every line, every shape must follow design. But your kind creates chaos and calls it beauty." Ryan nodded. "That's true. Our art doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to make someone feel something." The Queen looked down thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why your kind laughs. You see beauty in what is unfinished. Ryan smiled. Exactly. Because life itself is never finished. As the meal continued, the queen found herself laughing more than once. Not loud laughter, but soft, uncertain sounds that carried warmth. The advisors watching from a distance whispered in disbelief. Their queen had not laughed in decades. After the meal, the queen invited Ryan to walk with her through the royal gardens. The gardens were unlike any on earth. The trees glowed with soft light and their leaves changed color with each breath of wind. Streams of liquid light ran between the roots, and strange insects drifted in the air, leaving trails like tiny stars. Ryan looked around in awe. "It's beautiful," he said. The queen nodded. "It is said these gardens were shaped by the first rulers of my kind. They believed perfection would please the stars. I come here when I need silence." Ryan looked up at the twin moons rising above the palace. "Sometimes silence can be too loud," he said softly. The queen turned to him. "Too loud?" "Yes," Ryan said. "When everything is quiet, you start hearing your own thoughts too clearly. That's why humans talk, sing, laugh. It fills the silence and reminds us we're not alone." The queen thought about that for a long time as they walked. She looked at the glowing river and saw her reflection again. For the first time, she noticed how serious she always looked. Her face showed power but never peace. "Human," she said finally. "Yesterday you said laughter makes fear smaller. Does it truly work?" Ryan nodded. "It does. Try it next time you feel fear or worry. It doesn't have to be a big laugh. Even a small one helps." The queen smiled faintly. "I am not sure my people would understand if their queen suddenly laughed during a crisis." Ryan chuckled. "Then laugh in private. Or at least try to smile. It's a good start." The queen looked thoughtful again. "Perhaps I will." They stopped near a crystal fountain that flowed upward instead of down. The light reflected between them, soft and warm. "You know," Ryan said, "when I first came here I thought you'd be cold and distant, but now you remind me of the best teachers I've had. You ask questions that make me think about what really matters." Queen Vora looked surprised. "You see me as a teacher?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, but also as someone still learning. That's the best kind of teacher." For a moment the queen said nothing. Then she smiled, just slightly, and the light from the fountain seemed to grow brighter. "Perhaps you are right, human. Even queens must learn." They walked back to the palace together, their conversation easy and calm. The guards watching from afar looked at each other, unsure of what to make of the sight. Their queen was walking beside a human, speaking as if they were equals. Later that night, after Ryan was escorted to his room, Queen Vora stood again by her window. The stars outside shimmered across the black sky. She thought about everything she had heard, the words about hope, imperfection, and laughter. She reached up and touched her faceplate once more. For the first time in her life, she removed it completely. The cool air touched her skin and she felt free. Looking at her reflection, she smiled, a real quiet smile that belonged only to her. And somewhere deep inside her heart, she understood what Ryan had meant. Laughter was not weakness. It was light. It was the sound of life refusing to bow to fear. The next morning, the grand hall of the Xyrath Palace shone brighter than ever. Long banners of silver and violet hung from the tall ceiling. Rows of alien guards stood in silence, their eyes glowing faint blue. The court of Queen Vora had gathered to discuss important matters of the Empire. But today everyone spoke in quiet tones. Something was different about their queen. Queen Vora entered the hall wearing her usual royal armor, but her face looked calm and peaceful. Her eyes did not hold the sharp command that once made every creature bow lower than before. The air felt lighter, though no one could explain why. The courtiers whispered among themselves, wondering what had changed her. Ryan stood near one of the crystal pillars, waiting to be called. He had spent many weeks teaching the queen about human customs, emotions, and humor. He had no idea that his small talk about laughter and imperfection had started to reshape the queen's heart. When the meeting began, Queen Vora took her place on the crystal throne. Her voice was steady but softer than before. She started discussing matters of trade, diplomacy, and exploration. Her advisors nodded as usual, but many of them looked uncomfortable. Then one advisor named Krell stood up. He was tall with shining scales and cold eyes. Krell had always been loyal to the queen, but he did not trust humans. He bowed deeply and said, "My queen, the court wishes to speak about the human envoy." We believe he has affected your behavior in ways that may not serve our empire. The room went silent. Ryan looked at the Queen carefully but did not speak. He knew this was a moment she needed to handle herself. Queen Vora tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean, Advisor Krell?" she asked, her voice firm yet curious. Krell stepped forward. "Since the human arrived, you have become different. You smile during council. You laugh in public. You allow discussions that once would have been forbidden. Some fear the human's influence is dangerous." The Queen looked around. She could feel the unease in the room. The alien nobles had grown used to her strict, emotionless rule. To them, laughter was weakness. To her, it now felt like freedom. Ryan could sense the tension. He understood that in this moment, the Queen stood at a line between old tradition and a new future. Queen Vora slowly rose from her throne. The hall's light caught the silver edges of her armor. "I see," she said. "You believe that because I laugh, I have lost strength." Krell bowed again. "Your Majesty, we only wish to protect the Empire's image. The Xerath must never appear soft before other species." The Queen took a deep breath. "Strength without heart is not strength. It is emptiness," she replied. Her voice echoed across the chamber. "For many cycles we have ruled through fear. We have been respected, yes, but also alone. This human has shown me something different. He has shown me that connection can be a form of power." The advisors looked at one another in confusion. The idea was new and strange to them. Queen Vora turned to Ryan. "Human, step forward," she said. Ryan approached respectfully, standing before the throne. He felt the eyes of every alien in the room fixed on him. This human, the Queen said, did not come to kneel or to worship. He came to share. He has no weapons, no army, yet he stands with courage. "Tell them, Ryan, what gives your kind such strange strength?" Ryan looked around and then spoke slowly, his voice calm. "Your Majesty, we humans are not perfect. We argue, we make mistakes, we fail often, but we never stop trying. We believe in something more than control. We believe in understanding. When we laugh, it means we accept our flaws. When we connect with others, it means we are stronger together. That is what makes us human." The words hung in the air. The courtiers whispered among themselves. Some sneered, others listened closely. Queen Vora nodded. "You see? He speaks with honesty. No fear, no deceit. That is the kind of strength I wish for our people to learn." Krell frowned. "Your Majesty, the Xerath have survived for centuries because we followed the old path. If we start behaving like humans, our enemies will think we are weak." Vora stepped down from her throne and stood in front of Krell. Her tall figure made him lower his gaze. "Perhaps, Advisor, it is time our enemies see something new. Let them see that we are not only warriors, but beings who can grow." For a moment, no one moved. Then, to everyone's surprise, the Queen smiled slightly. "Krell, do you fear laughter?" The advisor looked nervous. "It is not our way." The Queen gave a soft laugh, the same kind she had learned from Ryan. "Maybe it should be. Because when one can laugh, one is not bound by fear." The court gasped quietly. The Queen was laughing, in the middle of the Grand Council. No one dared to move, unsure if this was a test. Ryan smiled faintly. It was the same laughter that had once shocked the entire hall weeks ago. Now it was spreading. The Queen then turned to the council. "From this day forward, humans will no longer be seen as lesser beings. They will be regarded as allies. Their world is not to be conquered, but to be understood. Let it be written." Several advisors tried to protest, but the Queen raised her hand. "Enough, my decision is final." Krell bowed slowly, defeated but still loyal. "As you command, my Queen." The meeting ended with quiet tension. The courtiers left the hall whispering among themselves. Some thought the Queen had lost her mind. Others thought she had found something greater than logic, a balance of strength and heart. Later that evening, Ryan met the Queen in the garden of glowing vines. The sky above was filled with twin moons. The garden shimmered in shades of blue and green. "You handled that well," Ryan said softly. Queen Vora looked at the sky. "Did I? My advisors think I am no longer fit to rule." Ryan shook his head. "They'll understand with time. Change is never easy. But you showed them courage today. Real courage." The Queen turned to him. "Courage. That word again. Humans use it often." Ryan smiled. "Because it's what keeps us moving." Even when others doubt us, the Queen was silent for a moment. "In the beginning, I thought your laughter was weakness. But now I see it as the voice of hope. It breaks walls that no weapon can." Ryan nodded. That's exactly it. Laughter doesn't mean we don't take things seriously. It means we're alive enough to face them. The queen looked down at her reflection in the small water pool. Perhaps that is why your kind is feared. You are unpredictable. You fight with more than strength. Ryan chuckled softly. Sometimes we just fight with our hearts. The queen looked at him again. Then perhaps the Xyrath must learn to do the same. For the next few days, Queen Vora began to make changes. She invited humans to share knowledge, art, and science. The palace halls that once echoed with command now filled with conversation. Music from both worlds mixed in harmony. At first, many resisted. Some soldiers called it weakness. But when the queen herself joined the humans in their lessons, the rest followed. Slowly, laughter began to echo in corners of the palace where silence once ruled. Ryan watched the transformation with pride. He had not come to teach a ruler to laugh. He had come to remind an empire what it meant to feel. Queen Vora's people began to notice that her rule had not weakened. In fact, it had strengthened. Trade improved, alliances grew, and even their enemies paused, unsure of how to deal with a queen who could command armies yet still smile. The alien courtiers started to respect Ryan deeply. They began calling him the one who laughs at shadows. To them, he was no longer just a human envoy, but a symbol of a new kind of strength. One evening, as the twin moons rose again, Queen Vora stood on her balcony overlooking the city. She turned to Ryan and said, "I think they are beginning to understand." Ryan smiled. "They are. You gave them something powerful, permission to be more than what they were told to be." The queen looked thoughtful. "Perhaps laughter is the true mark of strength, not because it hides fear, but because it faces it without armor." Ryan nodded. "That's very human of you to say." The queen smiled softly. "Then maybe we are not so different after all." And in that moment, as the stars glowed above them, the Xyrath queen and the human envoy shared a quiet laugh together. It was not the laughter of mockery, but of friendship, a sound that would echo through history as the beginning of peace between two worlds. The twin suns of the Xyrath Empire rose high over the capital city. The golden light spread across the towers, shining on the silver walls of the royal palace. It had been many months since the human envoy Ryan arrived. What had started as a strange encounter between two very different beings had now turned into a new story for both worlds. Queen Vora stood on the balcony of her royal chamber, watching the busy streets below. Once those streets had been silent and filled with soldiers. Now they were alive with color and sound. She could see humans and Xyrath walking together in the markets, trading ideas and inventions. Music played from every corner, and the laughter she once thought foolish now echoed proudly through her city. Her reflection in the balcony glass caught her attention. She smiled faintly. The old Queen Vora would have worried about how her armor shined or how others saw her face. But now she saw herself differently. She no longer saw a ruler who must hide behind perfection. She saw a being who had learned to grow, to feel and to lead with both mind and heart. Ryan entered the balcony, holding a small box. "Good morning, Your Majesty," he said cheerfully. Vora turned to him with a warm expression. "Ryan, you are always early. You humans never seem to rest," he smiled. "We rest, just not for long. We get restless when there's work to do." He opened the box and showed her a gift. Inside was a small, delicate crown made of woven silver wires and tiny crystals that glowed faintly. "I made this with some of your people in the crafts hall. It's a human-style gift, a symbol of friendship." The queen took the crown carefully. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "You made this by hand?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, on Earth we give crowns like this not to rulers but to those we admire. It means they bring light where there was darkness." The queen looked at the crown for a long time. Her eyes softened. "Light where there was darkness," she repeated. "Your kind has brought much of that here." Ryan shook his head. "No, Queen Vora, you brought it. You were the one brave enough to change." Vora looked out at her city again. "Change is never easy," she said. "Many still question my decisions. Some think I have grown weak." Ryan leaned on the balcony rail. "Let them think. On Earth, leaders are often doubted. But time shows who was right. You changed an empire. That takes strength." Before she could reply, a messenger entered the balcony and bowed. "Your Majesty, the council is ready. They await your speech." The queen nodded. "Tell them I will arrive shortly." The messenger bowed again and left. Vora looked at Ryan. Today, I speak not only to my people, but also to yours. It is a new era, Ryan smiled. Then let's make sure they hear your heart. The great council hall was filled with beings from many worlds. Humans sat beside Xerath scholars, and representatives from other species filled the balconies. Giant banners of unity hung from the ceiling. At the center stood the Queen's throne, shining in pale light. As Queen Vora entered, the hall fell silent. Her steps echoed through the chamber. She was dressed in her royal armor, but this time without the heavy helmet that once hid her face. Instead, she wore the small crown Ryan had given her. The audience watched her closely, sensing that this day would mark a turning point in history. When she reached the center, she raised her hand and began to speak. Her voice was calm but carried power. "My people, my friends, my allies," she said. "For generations we believed that strength meant never showing emotion. We believed that fear kept us safe and that power was all that mattered. But I have learned something greater. Power without heart leads only to silence." The crowd listened quietly. "When the human envoy came to our world," she continued, "I thought his laughter was foolish. I thought his softness meant weakness. But now I understand. His laughter was courage. His kindness was strength. He faced me not as a servant, but as an equal, and through that, I saw a reflection of what we could become." Ryan listened from the side of the hall, feeling both proud and humbled. The Queen went on, her voice growing stronger. "I no longer wish to rule through fear. I wish to lead through understanding. The Xerath Empire will no longer stand apart from others. We will share knowledge, art, and spirit with our allies. Together we will build something far greater than any single world can create alone." For a moment there was silence. Then slowly the hall erupted in applause. The sound filled every corner. Some of the older council members still looked uncertain, but many others smiled, feeling hope for the first time in their lives. Queen Vora turned to Ryan. "Come forward, human envoy." Ryan stepped into the center of the hall. The Queen looked down at him with respect. "Ryan," she said, "you came here alone, without army or weapon. Yet you changed the heart of an empire. You taught us that emotion is not weakness. You reminded us what it means to be alive. For that you will always have a place among my people." Ryan bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I only shared what it means to be human. The rest was you." The Queen smiled. "Then may both our kinds continue to share that meaning." After the ceremony, a great celebration filled the city. Music from both worlds blended into one sound. Humans danced with Xerath soldiers. The air was filled with joy and color. Even the twin moons above seemed brighter that night. In the middle of the celebration, Ryan sat near a fountain, watching everyone enjoy themselves. Queen Vora approached him quietly. "You do not join them?" she asked. Ryan looked up and smiled. "I enjoy watching more. Seeing everyone laugh and smile, it's better than any reward." Vora sat beside him. "When you first laughed at me, I was angry," she said. "No one had ever dared to laugh in my presence. But now I am grateful. That laugh changed everything." Ryan chuckled softly. "Sometimes laughter opens doors that logic never can." The Queen nodded slowly. "You humans have a strange way of teaching. You never force your lessons, yet they stay forever." Ryan smiled. "Maybe because we teach through feeling, not rules." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sound of celebration around them. The alien sky shimmered with distant stars, and fireworks shaped like glowing flowers filled the night. The Queen spoke again. "Do you think our worlds will truly live in peace?" Ryan looked at her calmly. "If people keep learning from each other, yes. Peace doesn't start with treaties. It starts when someone decides to understand instead of fear." The Queen looked at the humans and Xerath laughing together in the crowd. "Then peace has already begun," she said. Ryan nodded. "Yes. And it began with you." As the night went on, the two leaders continued to talk about their plans for the future. They discussed trade, education, and the exchange of ideas. The Queen wanted her people to learn human art and science. In return, humans would study Xerath technology and medicine. The following weeks brought more change. New schools were built, and children of both races studied side by side. The once rigid empire now echoed with songs and stories. The word laughter became part of the Xerath language. One day, Ryan prepared to return to Earth. The Queen met him at the same grand hall where they had first spoken. "So, you finally returned to your world," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "My mission is complete. But I will visit again. You've got too many good stories now." The queen smiled gently. "And you have given me the greatest one of all." She stepped closer. "When they ask me why the Zirath changed, I will tell them it was because one human laughed without fear." Ryan laughed quietly. "Then I'll tell my people that one alien queen taught us that even rulers can smile." The two stood in silence for a moment, sharing mutual respect. Then Ryan bowed deeply, and the queen touched his shoulder in the traditional gesture of farewell. When his ship lifted into the sky, the queen watched it disappear among the stars. She turned to her people and said, "Remember this day. Remember what laughter brought us." The courtiers bowed, their eyes shining with pride. From that day forward, the story of the human who laughed at the alien queen became a legend told across galaxies. It was not a story of war or conquest, but of understanding. It reminded every being that even in the vast cold of space, warmth could still be found in a smile and a laugh, in the courage to see beauty beyond difference. Queen Vora ruled for many years with wisdom and kindness. Her empire became known not for fear but for compassion, and whenever someone asked about the strange sound humans called laughter, she would smile and say, "It is the sound of strength." And so, the tale of a queen's worry and a human's laughter became a light that guided countless worlds toward a better future. A reminder that sometimes, the smallest act of humanity can change the course of the stars.